Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the extra mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now your hosts, Jackson Mummy and Megan Saya from Celebration Bar Review.
Megan, hey there. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I know we've got a lot to cover, so why don't we jump in?
So let's talk about a bunch of the jurisdiction and updates with what's happening in 2021 and beyond. So we'll just jump right into it. First up is, I think, great news. Indiana is adopting the UBE starting in July 2021. So adding one more jurisdiction to the ever-growing list of UBE jurisdictions, Jackson.
Yeah, what are we up to? 35 or 36, something like that. So it's a lot of jurisdictions. Indiana had been similar to the UBE, but not quite. So that's good news, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So again, if you are looking at maybe you live in Indiana, but you wanted to take the UBE, it won't be the February exam, but in the July 2021 exam. So that's exciting news. In terms of who's going online, this list is also growing. So Indiana announced they're going online. North Carolina also did. That's a big one, Jackson, because they did the in-person exam back in July, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now the biggest state that hasn't committed to online is probably Texas, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And Texas has said that they have 3 sites set up on their website you can check for their in-person February 2021 examination. So as of right now, I would say it's not even that Texas hasn't committed to online. They seem to be planning and moving ahead with in-person. So that's very interesting considering obviously the state of COVID in Texas right now and the hospital problems that they're having with overcrowding and things like that. So we'll see what happens when we get through the holidays. But as of now, yeah, most major jurisdictions are moving online except for Texas.
Yeah, it is significant that North Carolina switched from in-person to an online exam. So that could be a trend we'll see more of. I'm going to be curious to see if some other smaller jurisdictions decide to go online as well.
Yeah, definitely. So we're keeping our eyes out on that. Linda asked, has New Jersey committed to online? No, not as far. Oh, they did?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have them on my list. It's changing. Yes. All right.
Well, you're talking. I'm going to check, but I am almost certain that New Jersey is online. So
great.
Bear with me for a second and I'll.
No problem. Yeah. And so then certainly.
New Jersey is, in fact, yes, they are.
Great.
November 2nd, they announced that they are going to be remote.
Okay, I just missed that one. I'm sorry. My apologies. Yeah, it's getting to be a big list. The big ones obviously are California, Florida, New York, Georgia, Illinois, now with Indiana and North Carolina. Got a lot. Yeah, DC, Tennessee, Colorado. I'm not going to go through them all, but yes, a lot of jurisdictions are. So yeah. And then Alexander just asked Arizona. I don't have them on my list, but you can check.
I do not have it on my list. No.
Double check me. Yeah, so we'll keep an eye out on that as well. All right. So then also another jurisdictional change that's happening is that Georgia, so they did decide to go online and they are going to keep their open book format for the Georgia essays for this February exam, which I think is great for our students. We heard good feedback. We give, obviously, with the sort of different format and different way that we teach the bar, I think it really lends itself nicely to an open book exam where we didn't just send our Georgia students out last time with an entire set of bar review books and say, good luck, find that one tiny little piece. Right.
Yeah, for sure. I think mind mapping is a big help, but I think the writing style too, when you're writing more directly, you just don't have time to issue spot. And isn't it interesting how it's really sort of pulling the genie out of the bottle and saying the quiet part out loud. It really is not, the bar exam is not about the law you memorize. And I applaud the Georgia examiners for being more honest about this than a lot of other places. I think it's pretty clear that they don't care if you can memorize the law. That's just not the skill of an attorney. So an open book exam to me is a fairer test. And I hope it'll be interesting. I don't think it's really driven by the fact that it's an online test necessarily, but I'm glad that it's happened. And I think once you've done it a couple of times, that becomes the standard almost. So that would be my expectation there.
Yeah. And Jackson, what happens in terms of for the states that are UBE? Would they even have the option of doing open book for the the multi-state essay?
That's a really good question. I would say they could, because they're only graded against their own state. Now, they couldn't go open book on the multi-state bar exam, because then the scoring, remember in the multi-state, you're really graded against the entire nation, everyone that takes the multi-state. So there it's got to be a uniform test. And again, to be clear, whether you're sitting in person or online, the multi-state exam you'll take in February will be identical. There are not two forms of the exam there. So everyone will get the same 200 questions in different order, but they'll get the same 200 questions online or in person. That will not be an open book exam for sure. But I think different UBE jurisdictions could decide to go online for their exam, and it would be okay, because you're not grading the DC essays against the Colorado essays. So, but we'll see. It's a great question.
Mozzie asked, did you say you think open book tests are fairer tests?
Yes, I do. I think they test the skill that's really being used by a lawyer more, and that is the ability to analyze and reason, not just to recite rules. So, yeah.
Definitely. So if you're in Georgia, definitely be working on those mind maps. Those are going to be the most helpful piece for you in terms of notes and study aids that you're allowed to take to the exam with you, because you are not going to have time. No one will have time to flip through their huge stack of bar review materials in order to find the principle of law. You want to be able to find those triggers really quickly, which is really what mind maps are suited for.
Yeah, and I just want to remind you that you can find pre-made mind maps for subjects in the Bar Maps course. So if you have not purchased the Bar Maps course, you might want to consider doing that. Those are pre-made for every subject in your state exam as well as the multi-state exam. So I think they're really helpful that way. Also, I just want to remind everybody that's in our course that if you're a photo reader, we have a photo reading syllabus for you. We've updated those in a couple of jurisdictions as results have come out. So Florida and UBE, we've updated those two. We're waiting on Georgia and California for their results to come out from the fall, and we'll update those. But just check online, make sure you're looking at the most recent copies of everything.
One last thing I wanted to talk about with Georgia is that we are still uncertain if it is going to be a 30-minute or 45-minute essay. That's because normally in Georgia, it's a 45-minute essay, but last administration, they went down to only 3 essays and they did them 30-minute essays, made them 30 minutes. That was a change. We don't believe it was a permanent change, but it was a change. And the examiners have said they are going back to 4 essays for this February exam, but they have not explicitly said that they're going back to 45 minutes. So if you were taking the Georgia exam in February, I would really suggest checking, email, or call the bar examiners in your state and try to get clarification on this. If you hear from it, let us know, please. And maybe you already know right now. It could be that they've sent examinees some sort of email that obviously we wouldn't get. So definitely that's something to be aware of. I haven't seen anything that explicitly says they're not going back to the 30-minute or to the 45, but I also haven't seen anything that says they are for sure going back to 45 minutes.
Yeah, so we'll see. I think your presumption is correct there.
All right, so now we're going to move north just a bit to North Carolina. And I just wanted to let anyone know who's taking the North Carolina exam that they are staying with the lower, that 268 passing score for the February 2021 exam. They'll go back to the 270 passing score in July. So this was, if you'll remember, they did the 268 back for the July exam of this year. They're going to keep that lower pass rate or pass score for February, and then they'll move back to their normal 270 in July.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Didn't know that they would stay at the lower number. They have not done what California did, which was to make the lower score permanent. So that was just kind of interesting. And a couple of other states lowered their pass cut score in October, but I haven't heard that they are doing the same thing for February. So that'll be interesting to watch and see if that's a trend as well.
Yeah. So speaking of pass scores, let's take a look at a couple of Plan B jurisdictions that their scores are starting to trickle in. So We obviously had gotten already the many jurisdictions who took the in-person exam in July. Those scores have been released, whether or not you passed. Some of the September ones. But now we're starting to finally get this October exam. Just a couple of jurisdictions, some of these smaller ones, are getting their scores in. And many are not, maybe there have been about 4, I think, that have come in. 2 of the jurisdictions are not releasing the pass rate, so we don't know. But the 2 that have, there is good news, which is fantastic. So Ohio has a 77.4% pass rate, which is great. And then Maryland has a 70% pass rate. And I will tell you, so I want to break down these numbers with Maryland because I think it's really helpful. Even if you didn't take it in Maryland, you're not taking the exam in Maryland, this is a great sort of to see and compare, okay, what did July of 2019 look like versus this online October 2020 in a jurisdiction where roughly the same number of people took it. So there were 805 takers in October of 2020 in Maryland, and there were 838 in the July 2019 exam. So really pretty similar number of people took it. But the great news that I find really interesting is that the overall pass score was slightly lower in the 2019 one. But when you look at so there's just a 2% increase in the October exam. But when you look, they break it down into first time takers, second time takers, third, and then fourth or more. Okay, so second time takers, so if you had failed it before, in 2019, they had a 32% pass rate. They had a 40% pass rate in October. The third time takers had a 25% pass rate in 2019. They had 33% pass rate in 2020. And the fourth or more time takers had an 18% pass rate in July of 2019, and they had a 25% pass rate in 2020. Those are significant numbers. If you fall into one of those groups in whatever jurisdiction you're in, gosh, you're going to be hoping and praying that those numbers look similar in your jurisdiction as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really good leading indicator of what the Plan B test might look like. Remember that Maryland was a UBE jurisdiction. They did the 3 essays, 1 performance test, 100 multiple choice questions. If that breakout holds across the country, if that trend holds, that is good news. It's something that would certainly validate what we've been saying since March of 2020, which was that this was a good time to take the exam, even with all the craziness that went in. I would say the one outlier obviously has been Florida with their 20% repeat bar taker pass rate, although that was pretty consistent with what it was a year before. But still, across the board, I think we might be looking for better results in these UBE jurisdictions as they come out that gave the Plan B test. So I think that's the first leading trickle or indication that there's something that was going on in that test, and that's really good news, particularly for our audience and for people who are repeat bar takers. So I'm excited to see those numbers too.
Yeah, I think it's really good news. I think we had seen these higher pass rates from the July exam and then from some of the September ones that had come out already, but we just weren't sure what happens when we transition to this online test. And so, yeah, I think it's really great news, and we're keeping our eyes on it as more start to come in. We'll see if this trend holds, but certainly between Ohio and Maryland so far, good news. I'm hearing rumblings that the New Hampshire pass rate was also, they didn't have release an official one, but sort of the word on the street pass rate is it was significantly higher as well. So these are good numbers that we're seeing. So
yeah, and congratulations to our students who passed in all those jurisdictions. It's interesting to me how each jurisdiction is handling the Plan B reporting of the scores. We're seeing a wide variety of information. Some of them are just giving the raw number 1, 2, 3. Some of them are explaining how they got to a scaled score on the multi-state. Some of them are just issuing a score. It is it's a gumbo basically of approaches, and as we gather more information, we'll be able to piece it all together, I think, and get a better overall picture. But it is very weird. We're sort of like looking at the elephant through a pinhole sometimes, trying to figure out what are we touching here? Is this the tail or the head? So it's completely unprecedented, obviously, and fascinating for you and me, but I know it's maddening for students trying to figure out what it all means. So we'll keep trying to break it down.
Yeah. Speaking of Florida and being a little bit different, Jackson, did you want to talk any more about what the results in Florida have been? What's happening with that?
Yeah, very quickly. As I said, the repeat partaker pass rate was relatively low. And I have said to a number of people that I think the Florida results in October were not something that you can hold your hat. There's no precedential value. There's no reliability of the test because it did not have even the 100 MBE questions. It's a very odd test. So if you passed, and we had a lot of students that did pass, we're very excited for them. If you didn't pass, that's unfortunate, to be clear, but don't take it as precedent. Don't take it as there's something wrong or I'm not good. The test was a bizarre test at best, and the circumstances were bizarre with all the postponements and changes and structure and so on. I do think it's interesting. We got a lot of comments after the exam about trusts being a Florida multiple choice topic for the first time ever. And so I expected when the results came out, we'd see very low trust score. That was not true. Our students did very well on trust, which I think goes to your point that you were telling me earlier, Megan. We prepared students for trust. We just told them it would be in an essay rather than multiple choice, but they were very well prepared and they hit the mean very consistently. Now we have added 50 Florida trust multiple choice questions. We've got 35 of them up today, and the other 15 are coming within a couple of days in an online format and in our Florida multiple choice question books. So those will be coming up, and we've updated your study guide to reflect that. So if you're a Florida student, make sure you check the online copy of the study guide. But it's a weird test. The good news is Florida goes back to a regular multi-state and traditional exam given online, but it's a traditional form in February. So we'll see. I will say one other thing about Florida. What I'm seeing is that a lot of people were so discouraged by what happened in October, and because it came out so late, that they are bailing out of the February exam. I think we're going to see a relatively small number of February takers. And if you are thinking of taking the exam, try to take it in February. It's going to be to your benefit. This is going to be a much smaller exam than I think it typically is. I'm just seeing so many people who are saying, I just can't emotionally bring myself to start studying for that exam. Because what are we now, 80 some days to the test as we're talking?
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. So if you can do it, if you're in an okay mental space and physical and health space to be able to do it, definitely take advantage of that. I will say, Jackson, I just want to emphasize this point. We were talking about it that Florida just sort of caught everyone off guard by introducing a new subject on the Florida multiple choice that they have never tested on the Florida multiple choice ever before. So no one who went into that test had studied Florida trusts multiple choice questions. They didn't exist. They were not a thing that had ever been done before. But we keep seeing on these score sheets that our students are sending us, pass or fail, that they hit over the mean on the Florida trust multiple choice questions consistently. It is crazy. And so what that tells me is this makes my heart happy, because I feel like I don't think you all trust us all the time, that when we tell you you're studying evidence, let's say if you're in one of those jurisdictions, you're studying evidence, that you're not just studying it for that format. You're studying it for any format that you're going to see it on your test. When you're studying real property, you're not just studying it for the essays. If you're writing a real property essay, you're also studying it for the multiple choice section. You are this spiral review, this stepped repetition that we do here. It actually works. And here, the proof is in the pudding. Here's what it is. Nobody, not a single one of our students or anyone else's students, studied Florida trust multiple choice questions, but they all hit above the mean, or most of them hit above the mean on the Florida trust multiple choice questions, because this essay work that you did on Florida trust, listening to the lectures, doing the essays, doing your mind maps, all of that work prepared you to see these multiple choice questions that you had never even practiced a single one of them before. So just trust us that this works, I promise. And I just love it, because now I feel like we've got like hard data that we can point to say like, look, I promise it works.
Yeah, and if you don't believe us, the Washington Post ran an article last week about Amazingly enough, the most successful way to study is stepped repetition, like they had just discovered it. And we've only been teaching it that way for 20 years. But so that was fun. It's always nice when you get that confirmation from exterior sources. So yeah, I echo that, Megan. For all of you, regardless of what state you're in, if you're in our course, just relax a little bit. We know what we're doing. You're okay. You don't need to be checking to say, oh, does this work?
It works. I'm going to put in, Brooke just asked a question. I'm taking the February 2021 Florida bar. Does a smaller test group help or hurt scaled scores?
It helps. And the reason it helps is that we're going to have, I think, a disproportionate number we're going to have a lot of empty seats. There are going to be fewer people. I think the Florida bar really uses a quota system. So I think more of the applicants will pass in this exam. And I think it creates more opportunity. If you're a repeat bar taker, there are just fewer people competing with you. A lot of repeat bar takers are going to bail out. So there'll be fewer people competing for those spots for passing.
All right. So now let's move on to New York. I want to talk really quickly about their I know. I want to talk about their third registration period, which just opened yesterday. And then we have some questions about the New York bar. So, which don't we all have questions about the New York bar right now? All right. So they opened their third application filing period. And I know, unfortunately, it was really only slightly broader than their first two. This one really just extended the LLMs who could register to LLMs who met all of the requirements from the second period, but graduated in 2019 rather than in 2020. So it's going to be another tiny group. It's registrations only open for them until December 8th. And then if they still have more seats, I don't understand. It's an online test, so not really sure what they mean by enough seats, but sure. So they will move on to another group. Jackson, thoughts about what our students should do if they are trying to sit in New York?
Yeah, I think number one, I would abandon all hope of getting into New York at this point. It's pretty clear to me that New York is just not going to allow repeat bar takers and foreign attorneys without LLMs to sit for the exam, at least for the foreseeable future. So I would go to the National Conference of Bar Examiners website. We've put the link up before to their but their admission rules. I think they call it the Comprehensive Guide to Bar Study. And there is a chart there that talks about foreign trained applicants, but for anybody, I would look at other UBE jurisdictions and see where you can get in. I would pay particular attention to Texas and Washington State. If you're a foreign trained attorney, those are not the only states, but they're two good states and two fairly manageable states. If you are not a foreign trained attorney and you're just someone who's failed the New York bar too many times to be admitted into taking the test, pick any UBE jurisdiction you want. It's the same test everywhere. So find the one that's got the most favorable application deadlines, application fees, requirements for what they want you to do. I know we'd gotten an email, someone was talking about how in some states you have to do a credit check, and in some states you have to do a character and fitness check, and in other states you have to write a large physical check to get in. Look around, you've got 35 states, find one. You're gonna find some that'll do it. The difficulty that we're faced with, and we've said this over and over again, is we cannot give you individualized admissions advice. That becomes the practice of law. That is a violation of our license with the National Conference. So we just can't do it. But we can point you in the right direction, and that's where I would point you, is to that document and then to the bar examiners' websites. But I think you just have to recognize that New York is not going to let you in for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. We had a student question. I want to know if you're aware of New York allowing people to waive in their scores sooner than 5 years of practice. I was shut out again from taking their exam and want to take the exam in DC and waive into New York, but waive in ASAP.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. The 5-year waive in is even in question in my mind. I mean, that you're talking about a pro hoc vice waiver, and I don't know that you're going to get it. You're just not going to be able to do this. New York is trying. I think we've just got to acknowledge that right now New York has locked down the borders and said we are not allowing people to take the exam or to waive in or to take the exam in another UBE jurisdiction and transfer their scores in. Now, if you're not clear about that, obviously don't rely on our discussion. Go to the New York bar and ask your question of the New York bar and the New York bar examiners. They are the ultimate authority here. The problem is that these rules are changing and they're fluid more than they're solid right now. But every trend for a year has been towards making it less accessible. And so I would say that trend continues at this time.
All right. Another student said, I want to take the UBE in February of 2021. I need to register for the exam in a jurisdiction that gives the UBE. I'm a New York resident, but its bar is not an option. There are just thousands of people who are in this boat, which is really a shame. Yeah. I registered for 2 previous bars and chickened out. My intention was to take the DC bar. However, due to the pandemic, they'll be giving the exam online. I prefer to write for the exam if possible. Any suggestions?
Right now, there are some states that are saying that they're going to give the exam, the UBE, online. And again, you can go to the National Conference website and check that. Alabama comes to mind as a state that gave the exam in person for the UBE. That's certainly a possibility. But those states that are going online versus in person are changing like every day, aren't they? That's what we're seeing every day. We go, oh, look, there's another state that's joined the list. So I don't think there's any guarantee that the state you choose will ultimately be an in-person exam. I do want to say this, we're not aware of any jurisdiction that is saying they will do both online and in person. That's not going to happen. So let's say you went to Alabama, you registered there, and then they decided next week they're going to give an online exam. It's an online exam. So I don't know that there's a guarantee. I think your best chance, frankly, based on what we said earlier, is Texas, that seems to be very much going to go to an in-person exam, and they have just joined the UBE. So I think if you're looking for the surest thing, it's probably Texas, don't you?
Yeah, and I would just add to that, if you want to physically write, I'm not sure if this person meant handwrite or just like type, I don't know, but assuming they mean handwrite, some jurisdictions, not all, but some are offering the option not only for accommodations to take it in person, but people who just want to handwrite it to take it in person. So check, because I can't tell you with DC, I'm not sure, but call them and ask, or email and ask if without an accommodation, but just a preference to handwrite, if they'll allow you to do that in person. So that's
I think that's going to be a tough one. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And of course, we always say, don't handwrite. You should type it. You should type it. You're graded against people who type. You are not graded against the other handwriters. You're graded against everyone, which is 99% people typing it. And you're at a severe disadvantage if you handwrite the exam. Just letting you know. All right. Let's move on to some administrative questions. This is also about New York. So would you tell me, whenever the New York Bar Exam Administration releases their results, where can we see them? Do we receive an email first, or just link, or on a website? And do you know the exact time?
No one knows the exact time except the New York Bar Examiners. We don't have any idea. With all of these UBE Plan B October jurisdictions, we really don't have result dates announced in most of them. New York never announces their result date. They will send you an email, usually, in the middle of the night, and there's no warning. I used to have a spidey sense when they gave the exam in July. I have no spidey sense for a test given in October. So I don't really know. It could be any day. I would think sooner rather than later is everybody's goal. But I think we're looking at results in Georgia in, I want to say December.
Yeah, so Georgia is most like, because Georgia usually releases on Fridays, correct?
Yeah.
So that really means it has to be probably on the 19th, because otherwise it'll be Christmas. So I don't think, they're not so mean that they would release them.
That would be awful. We're talking about the Grinch, right? The Grinch.
I'm sorry, the 18th. So the 18th, sorry. The 18th would be the last Friday before Christmas. So that would be my guess. That's my spidey sense for Georgia.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And California, we know that their release date is, we don't know the exact date.
It's mid-January, they're saying.
Yeah. But New York doesn't, nothing. They haven't said a word. So I don't know. We won't know. You'll tell us is really what will happen. And my email inbox will light up in the middle of the night. When you're an insomniac and you wake up at 2 a.m. and you go, oh no, that's what's happened. So I don't know. I wish we could tell you something, but we can't.
Yeah. All right. Once I take a practice test, can I reset it to take it again, or is that it?
You can reset it. You can take the online practice test as often as you want. Let me say that if you're in a jurisdiction that's giving the exam online, you should be doing all of your practice questions online. That would be your multiple choice questions, your essays, and performance tests if they're part of it. And then make sure that you watch the videos that we did for how to write essays and performance tests online, and be certain that you're following that. Do not work in hard copy if your test is going to be online.
All right. Last question. Is it too late to start studying now for the February 2021 exam?
No, it's not too late. You need about 250 to 300 hours of study time. So you can divide that up by the number of days that we've got. And I think you're looking at probably about 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours a day on average. So that means about 20 to 25 hours a week. That's pretty manageable. There'll be people that will not begin their studies until January. That's every year we have those sort of January 10th starters who try to build it into 6 or 7 weeks. That's a really unpleasant way to do it, but can be done. But yes, you have plenty of time right now.
Yeah. All right, great.
So that's what's going on. There's a lot happening, obviously. And I think that it's challenging right now with COVID, with the national environment and politics, the bar exam, the results, the uncertainty. There's just a lot out there. It's a lot of pressure. And the holidays. I forgot about the holidays, right? And so I think be kind to yourselves would be my message. Be nice to yourselves. Be nice to the people around you. We know it's hard. We know it's stressful. And I don't think it's going to get necessarily easier in the short run. But we've got a pretty good handle on it from our end. And I think if you just continue to follow our direction, you're going to be way better off than most people. And so I appreciate so many of you being kind and supportive and following our direction. And if you've been uncertain about that, defer on the side of following what we're telling you to do. It's probably your best path forward. The next thing that I want to talk about in terms of an announcement is a product that I'm really excited about, an enhancement to the course. We're calling it the Fast Finish Audio. Many of you have been in photo reading and you've heard the Fast Finish. That's the super high speed audio recording of what you've just been through, the material you've just been through. And the technology to do a fast finish up until now has been very complicated, very expensive to do. But through some other, just some great software that's become available, we actually now are in a position to do some fast finish sort of work. And so what we've done is to begin with the multi-state subject lectures. And I have put the multi-state subject lectures into a fast finish, taking a 3-hour lecture and bringing it down to about an hour and 40 minutes or so that's intelligible. You can hear it and understand it, but it is really moving along. I could go faster, but it's really moving along. In any event, these fast finish audios are going to be part of the Bar Maps course. And June, I don't know if you're online there. If you are, and you can put up the link to order Bar Maps. Let me just say that what the Bar Maps program is a series of interactive videos plus mind maps, and now the fast finish for review at the end. So basically you do the regular course, then you go to the interactive bar map to dial in on particular subjects. You look at the mind maps to enhance your understanding of the subject. And then you use fast finish audios to get a quick, non-conscious review of the entire lecture. And you can listen to that as often as you want. So these are audios. Now we've done the multi-state fast finish, and we will start adding them to all of the state course subject lectures in the days to come. And I'm really excited about it. We posted it. If you've already got bar maps, go to your multi-state bar maps course. You'll see the fast finish links there. Go ahead and try them, check them out. And the feedback I'd like to get from all of you is whether or not I'm going too fast or too slow. That's what a crazy thing to say, but I'm trying to pick a speed that I think is good for people. It will sound very, very fast to you when you first start listening. Stay with it for 5 minutes or so, and you'll find your brain adjusting to it. And then what I really want to know is after 5 or 10 minutes of listening, is it too fast or too slow? So hope you enjoy that. I'm really excited about it. And I think it's a terrific enhancement. So that's what we've got going on. All right. We got all the way through. We'll be back again next Wednesday, right? Thank you, Megan. It's good to see you as always and to be back here. And we will hopefully have some more news and information next week when we visit with you again. So take care, everybody. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you again next Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening and watching the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at celebrationbarreview.com.